Welcome to this session of International Business Environment. And in this session, let us begin with the second chapter of International Business Environment, which in total speaks about the environmental context in detail. Now, speaking about this environmental context, in the present times, the environment is characterized with economic slowdown and also intense competition. The necessary condition for success of business is much more complex and uncertain than it was before. Now, along with all these and globalization of business, the business firms have to have the capacity to face global competition for both their survival and also for their growth. Now, for that matter, may it be any strategy formulation, exercises, and entails establishing a proper firm environment that would always highlight the critical and most importance of analyzing the international business environment. Now, to speak about that, it is always said that the essence of any successful business strategy is its environmental orientation. Now, since there are some fundamental difference between the business operation in the domestic and the international market for a successful strategy, there is always a need and a necessity to understand the complexities of this international market. Now, when it comes to international market, it is more than unlikely that a firm can extend its domestic strategies into foreign markets. Now, simple understanding of the customer's requirements is not only the important enough character when we go or when the business organization goes international. When we are speaking about internationalization, what makes a business strategy successful in the market and a failure in another is because of the difference in each firm's capabilities to understand, and not only to understand but also to respond to these environmental concepts or this international business environment. Now, speaking about this international business environment from the view of how it has been framed, the simplest way to explain the environment of business is always to conceptualize it as and in the manner that it is comprising of the surroundings, which will always have either a direct or a kind of indirect influence on the business. Now, the traditional view of business is to look upon the same as a closed system. That is to tell, a system which is not influenced by the external and the internal factors. But however, after Hawthorne experiment, it was realize that business cannot be run by mere economic rationality, and there are both internal and external factors which can influence and which will always influence the functioning and the performance of the business. And in the current days, business is no longer seen as a closed system, but it is always looked upon as an open system. And this new system is always influenced by the factors both within and outside the organization. Now, there are two of the educationalists who have given the business environment, they have explained what do they mean by business environment. I quote Richmond and Coupon: environment consists of factors that are largely, if not totally, external and beyond the control of individual, industrial enterprise and their management. These are essentially the givers within which firms and their management must operate in a specific country, and, and they vary often greatly from country to country. Unquote. That is to tell, the business environment is becoming very complex day by day as there is intense competition between the firms nowadays more than ever before. Now, moreover, many issues related to business, maybe such as environmental issues like deforestation, global warming, depletion of ozone layer, and the pollution of maybe it land, air, and water, and inclusive growth. Now they are no longer strictly the issues related to books and conferences. Now every organization that does business has to have concern towards all these things. Now they are the things of discussion in the public domain. The business is always challenged today to develop creative ways to make profits without harming the existing environment. And this is the greatest challenge that every business organization has to look into. Now, considering the variety of these sources of change in the environment, global managers, or in other words, the managers of those organizations which does international business, are always challenged to keep themselves and adjust as the need arises. Now, it can be said without any hesitation that gone are the days when business was heavily protected and subsidized, or licensed, quotas and restrictions were the order of the day. Now, competition is the name of modern business. Now, businessmen always stand on the brink of fear to eliminate or to get themselves eliminated from the market. Now, they stand on their feet to cut down costs, to eliminate deficiency, and if any, you know, other necessary expenses that are being incurred, and also to increase improvement in the quality of the products or the services that they produce is order of the day. But then, by this competition or the severe competitive market, the consumers are obviously benefited by the diverse openings that they have to spend their money on. And in this regard, I quote Michael Porter: aggressive home-based suppliers and demanding local suppliers, competing domestic rivals will keep each other honest in obtaining government support. Unquote. Nowadays, we can see that competition is not only from rival firms but also from the ever improving technology. For example, we can take that with the emergence of smartphones, many products such as maybe the camera, the Walkman, the cassettes, video recorders, personal diaries, posts, watches, alarm clocks, calculators, all are out of business today. So today's business is witnessing the manifold competition which were not present in the past, and this competition is created out of the changes that have taken place in various components of the business environment. Now, in order to survive and growth in this complex situation, the firms have to understand and even forecast these changes and their possible influence on the business and devise strategies for survival, and not only for survival but for a continuous growth. Now the next one is components of international business environment. Now speaking about components of business environment, now the components are similar as that of domestic business environment. And when it comes to internal environment, definitely there wouldn't be any kind of much changes. But then what we tend to explain is definitely different. So even the topic seems to be repetition, I can assure you that the discussions are not the same. And when you speak about external environment in international business and domestic business, both are very much in difference. Now, as we have already discussed, speaking about environment, it is a complex mix of components which interact with each other and produce situations which can be favorable, at the same time unfavorable for business. Now, a person called William F. Gluck has defined business environment as set of factors, and he tells that, I quote, business environment is the process by which strategies monitor the economic, governmental, market, supplier, technological, geographical, and social settings to determine opportunities and threats to their firms. Unquote. Now, if at all we see from the chapter 1, there are many definitions that are being discussed, and each one of them is from the point of view of who has given it. It becomes necessary that you at least know some or at least 3 to 4 of these definitions. Now, depending upon their proximity to a firm, various components of business environment can be basically divided into two categories. The first one is internal environment and the second one is external environment. Now, both these factors have varying degree of influence on business firm. Now, there is varying degree of control of a firm on these environment components also. Now, the internal environment comprises of the components which are related to direct achievement of the objectives and will always have a direct bearing on the performance of the firm. Now, since they are related to the achievement of tasks and activities within the organization, they are also called as task environment. Now, speaking of that, a firm's management can assert control on these factors. Hence, the internal environment is also connoted as controllable environment. So, it can be noted that maybe it is the internal environment, maybe it is the controllable environment, or for that it can also be called as task environment. Now, all the three would resemble internal environment. It is called as internal environment because it comes within the context of the business and the boundaries of such environment does not go out of the purview of each business organization. Now, it is called as task environment with or from the point of view that it is mainly concerned towards the objectives of each firm, and it is called as controllable environment because these factors may not be in total but to a large extent can be controlled by the business organization. Now, speaking of that, the external environment comprises of components which definitely lies outside a firm. Now, these components will usually have a remote or indirect influence on the firm's activities. Now, these are such components which do not intervene with the day-to-day activities but exert an influence always. Hence, the other name can be given to external components to be as a remote environment. Now, since these components lie outside the firm, the management of the firm can never exercise a direct control on them. So, the external environment is also considered to be uncontrollable environment. So, the external environment can also be called as remote environment or uncontrollable environment. Now, speaking about business environment, the first one is internal environment. Now, speaking of this, an organization's internal environment is composed of the elements within the organization, and it definitely includes concepts or components like current employees, management, and especially corporate culture, which would tell employees' behavior. Now, although some elements that are being included in internal environment affect the organization as a whole, others might only affect the manager. That is to tell, a manager's philosophical or leadership style directly impacts employees. Now, traditional managers give explicit instruction to employees, while progressive managers empower employees to make many of their own decisions. Now, for that matter, changes in philosophy or leadership style are under the control of managers. That is to tell, internal driving forces are those kinds of things, situation, or for that matter, it can be also events that occur inside the business and are generally under the control of company. Now, the various components of internal environment can be value system, vision, mission, objectives, strategy, core competence, resource, organization structure, corporate culture, and also quality of human resource. Now, speaking about this value system, now according to Business Dictionary, the value system is comprehended as a coherent set of values that are being adopted or evolved by a person or by an organization or can also be by a society as a standard to guide its behavior in preference in all the situation. That's what makes the value system. And they always represent the individuals, and in representing individuals, consequently, it represents the firm's commitment to abide by the self defined set of norms and values. Now, speaking about these norms and values, they define a firm's conceptualization of what it thinks or what that particular business thinks to be righteous or wrongfulness of its actions. And for that, they set the standards for the range of deviations that they would allow to themselves while earning the profits. Now, these value systems tell us the purpose of doing the business and the basic value for which a firm stands for. Now, all the subsequent actions of a firm are translated on the basis of their value system. Now, whenever it comes to exam and you have to explain such things, it is always expected of you that you not only write the meaning, but along with the meaning, you are expected to give example. Examples which can make your explanation stronger. And when I would be giving you the handouts of these lessons, I would try to incorporate some of the examples possibly. So do go through that, not only what would be given in your handout, but try to find other standard examples also. Now, speaking about the vision and the mission. Now, the vision of an organization will always outline or will always briefly tell what the organization wants to be or how it wants the world in which it operates to be. Or, in very, very simple words, it is the idealized view of the world. Now, speaking about vision and mission, it is always a long term view and concentrates on the future. It can be emotive and is a source of inspiration. Now, it is a long term view of the self and tells what the stakeholders of a firm see for themselves after doing the business. Now, speaking about stakeholders, stakeholders represent all those people who have interest on the business organization. Speaking about interest, it is not a literal interest. Interest here means a stake in the business. That is to tell, either the business would be owing them something or they would be owing something to business. It could be the customers, the suppliers, the consumers, the society, even the shareholders. All of them are together considered as stakeholders of a business organization. Now, this vision and mission sets a framework for the business to develop a roadmap of activities to translate it into the vision. Now, the firm's mission decides the course of action that a firm will follow in order to survive and grow. And we can see that in the present times, the firms develop a few core competences and develop their entire global business plan on its basis. Now, they would never dissipate their resources by venturing into too many business, but always concentrate on their core strength and do not mind outsourcing the rest. The mission is the roadmap to achieve the framework defined by the vision. Now, to understand the mission and vision, we can take example of Coca-Cola Corporation. Okay, and they tell the world is challenging all around us to continue to thrive as a business over the next 10 years and beyond. We must look ahead, understand the trends and forces that will shape our business in future and move swiftly to prepare for what to come. We must get ready for tomorrow today. That's what our 2020 vision is all about. It creates a long-term destination for business and provides us with a roadmap for winning together with our bottling partners. Now, this is the mission of Coca-Cola Company. And with this, they have also come out of what should be their mission in particular and also what should be their vision, and in completing the vision, how might be the people, the portfolio, the partners, the planet, profit and productivity of the organization would have its effect. Now, moving forward, the next one is objectives and strategies. Now, these objectives and strategies defines the objective of a firm as a specific result that, for that matter, could be a person or a system aims to achieve, and along with that a time frame and also with the available resources. In general, objectives are more specific and also they are easier to measure than goals. Now, objectives are basic tools that underline all planning strategies, activities. Now, they serve as the objectives, including minimizing expenses, expanding internationally, or making a profit. Now, in other words, objectives are the quantified and also measurable steps to achieve the mission of a firm. Now, when we speak about the mission translates into more operational paradigm in the form of strategy, which will be operating in different levels. A strategy is a long term plan formulated by the top management to achieve the goals within the framework of environmental uncertainty. Strategy is the direction and also the scope of an organization over the long term, which achieves advantages for the organization through its configuration of resources with a challenging environment. Now, to meet the needs of markets and to fulfill stakeholder expectations. Now, speaking about this strategy exists at several levels in an organization, ranging from the overall business or group of business through to each individual working in it. Now, speaking about all these things, I have observed that some of you enter the class or enter the meeting in the beginning and leave the meeting in between, and at the end you are joining once again. So I have decided that I would be taking your attendance in between. So whoever are present right now, you will be getting your attendance, and the rest, the smart ones, I'm sorry. So let us continue with the next one, that is corporate strategy. Now, speaking about corporate strategy, it is concerned with overall purpose and scope of the business to meet each stakeholder's expectations. Now, this is a crucial level, since it is, always heavily influenced by investors in the business, and the corporate strategy usually acts to guide strategic decision making through the business. Now, this corporate strategy usually is often a you know would be in detail said in the mission statement. Now, the next one is speaking about this, you can have business unit strategy or operational strategies also. Now, speaking about the business unit strategy, it is concerned more with how a business competes successfully in a particular market in which it operates. And when we speak about the business unit strategy, it concerns mainly on the strategic decision, maybe about the choice of products, meeting the needs of customer, gaining advantage over competitors, exploiting or creating new opportunities. Now, speaking about operational strategy, it is concerned with how each part of the business is organized to deliver the corporate and business unit level strategic direction. Operational strategy therefore focuses on issues like resource, process, people, and such other. Now, while understanding this operational strategy, you have to need to understand the tools which are used to analyze the business in a strategic manner. And to name a few, it could be pest analysis, scenario planning, five force analysis, market segmentation, directional policy matrix, competitor analysis, critical success factor analysis, and also SWOT analysis. Now, all these are being explained in the other part of the chapter. So, moving forward, the next one is core competences. Now, by core competencies, we mean the main strengths or strategic advantage of a business. Now, these core competencies are the combination of all the knowledge that are been pulled together and also the technical capabilities which allow a business to be competitive in the market. Now, theoretically, to explain, a core competency should allow a company to expand into new end markets as well as provide a significant benefit to customer. Now, it should also be hard for competitors to replicate. Okay, that will always act as one of the main competitive strength of a business. Now, the term core competency is relatively new. Now, to speak about this, it originated in the year 1990 when it was published in Harvard Business Review article. In it, the author who had suggested this word suggested that business function not enhanced by core competency should be outsourced if economically outsourcing is feasible. Now, this particular term was coined by C.K. Prahalad as an alternative tool to competitiveness, in addition to Porter's model of generic strategy. Now, speaking about this, since core competences are difficult to imitate, they are called as distinctive competence. Firms often develop core competences, but only a few are able to cover it into successful business. The classic, now to explain this uh, particular core competency, we can always take the example of two companies, Canon and Xerox. Now, both the companies started by developing core competency in optical scanning, or what we call it as Xerox, which we usually use it as a wrong word for the photocopies. Now, but over a period of time, Xerox outsmarted Canon by its superior strategy. Canon at one time had particularly driven Xerox even out of its home country, USA. But Xerox developed a very comprehensive market and customer service strategy and regained its leadership in the photocopy industry. And similarly, we can take example of Honda. Now, Honda is a vehicle based company. Honda developed the core competency in the field of petrol engine, and this led it to become a market leader in the product based on the same. Now, Honda is the leader in car, generator sets, and now even in two-wheelers. Now, these formidable competitive advantage dwells always upon the core competence. The next one is resource. Now, firms' access to exclusive resource is a big source of competitive advantage. The resource can be in the form of raw material, cheap labor, technology, network, cheap power, infrastructure, etc. These resources enable a firm to achieve effective strategy implementation, resulting into a characteristic distinctiveness, or what we call as differentiation. For example, Chinese manufacturers always have access to good infrastructure, cheap power, and other inputs. Further, they have exclusive knowledge of materials, since they are able to re-engineer the products to reduce cost without significant reduction into the operational performance of those products. Now, this makes them the low cost producers of the world, unmatched by any country in the world, eroding the competitive advantage of several developed nations also. And in present times, the intangible resource such as knowledge and technology, to be in specific, always play an important role in imparting competitiveness to the firms. And speaking about the next one is organizational structure. Now, there are certain firms have their own distinguished organizational characteristics, including the structure and systems, which can be a good source of competitive advantage. Now, to speak about this, Japanese firms have very strong system of planning and collective decision making. Now, organizational commitment and high degree of operational competencies to produce zero defect product, such as maybe output in the result of the organization wide efforts. In the present times, several firms have developed lean and efficient organizational structures which help them to produce what we call as unmatched quality. The properly designed organizational structure facilitate hassle-free communication between individuals. Not only that, it reduces conflicts and helps in achieving better coordination between various departments. Similarly, organizational culture helps in motivating employees and achieving better product. Now, the system of multinational companies have helped them to survive for centuries in diverse business environments. The recent example of strike and violent protests in Maruti were the result of the organizational problems. Now, their top management failed to anticipate the problem within the organization, and the firm had to face labor protests, shutdown of production, and loss of market position. Now, to solve that, they have to work very hard to come out of and regain its leadership position. Now, business environment is a complex combination of